So, yay, I'm obviously back home in the box truck. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what was wrong with the box truck? Well, we've kind of already known what was wrong the past 3 weeks. It's, for some reason, the fuel pump isn't doing what it's supposed to do. The real question was, what was the reason it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do, which is delivering fuel? And the original conclusion seemed to be that it wasn't the fuel pump, it was some sort of electrical thing, because we had gotten it to start intermittently. There was a lot to that. Then after that, it stopped running again. I had the mobile mechanic come out. He seemed to think that the problem was coming from the PCM. And he advised replacement of the PCM and installed a switch, and it ran for about 2 days, and then stopped running again. And at the time, I was trying to find out where I could either buy a PCM and install it myself, or get a shop to install it, because at this point I didn't care. I just wanted my home working and I wanted a price on what it would cost for my home to work. I don't even want to get frustrated here, but like, I'm so frustrated in a way. Like, I'm happy I have it back. So far it seems to be starting every time I turn the key, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm still not comfortable. And so, like, I'm definitely staying in populated areas. I'm staying near, quote unquote, the city, and I'm not traveling far, because last time it was fixed and within 3 days the engine wasn't turning over again. Now, because Ford did the work and they turned this back over to me saying it's working, I at least know who it goes back to if it stops running again. But ultimately they did end up having to replace the fuel pump after checking all the electricity, all the lines, and allegedly testing the PCM too. They said the PCM actually was fine. It was sending signal. They did do some repairs to some of the wire work, but also after they did all that and they tested the fuel pump on an independent power source, just like we did before, this time the fuel pump wasn't working. So what I'm thinking is this time the fuel pump, in fact, did completely burn out, and maybe there was some sort of problem going on there. It just was inconsistent in its results. So at this point, I'm hoping the problem doesn't repeat itself, but we do know sort of that the problem is somewhere in the world of electrical. Like, if the problem repeats itself, it only means they were wrong probably about the PCM. The biggest risk at this point is if there is something going on with the PCM, hopefully it won't burn the new fuel pump out, if that in fact was the case. So yes, it's fixed, question mark. Honestly, until I can't really celebrate right now, because until I've gone, based on the past couple of weeks, where we thought it was up and ready to go and the problem just repeated itself, until I've gone a couple of weeks without a problem again, I'm going to try to stay as safe as possible by not being out in the middle of nowhere, and I am just going to cross my fingers, to be quite honest, every time I turn that key. Because this isn't something simple where it's like, this part was broken, we replaced the part, and you move on with your life. This is kind of one of those really weird situations where it could have been a lot of things, and it could have been multiple things. And until I've actually gone a little bit without the problem reoccurring, because again, we've gotten the truck running before, I can't know for sure that I am good. And that is, you know, one of the inherent risks of living in a machine. And I've said it once and I'll say it again, I honestly have no interest in ever moving back into a house. Like, it's just not something I want to do. One of the more mean comments during this whole incident was like, what is your ultimate goal? I'm sitting in my ultimate goal. like that was my ultimate goal. Exactly what's happening right now. Me sitting in this house right now, like a moving mobile house that I built out myself to my needs, was the goal. Like that was the goal. You know, after I lived in the car, which was not a by choice situation, it was a by force situation when I ended up in the car. That was sort of a situation by force. While I was in the car, and I didn't really think about this until today, I was like, I am in a good position to pay down my debts, but I'd like to be comfortable. And it was at that point that I chose to start dedicating money towards getting a minivan and then cutting down some of the debts I had at the time. And I've almost forgotten my own history at this point. Like, those were my two goals: get a minivan so I could have a bed at least and be comfortable, and continue to work on paying down my debts and take advantage of this situation where I didn't have rent anymore, you know, because I hadn't lost my job. I was still working. I still continued to work. What I've been doing for work has changed a lot, and off and on, and from this to that over the past couple of years. But that was always the goal. You know, it wasn't actually to build out a van and travel the world. Travel was something I always wanted to do, but it was also something I was willing to do as money allowed. I didn't have to do it constantly. I didn't have to do it exclusively. And I still consider myself kind of nomadic. I don't park in the same place every night. I kind of float around. I'm really good at spotting where to park and kind of be ignored. And it's just something, I don't even know if I could quote unquote write a book on it. It's just a sense I've sort of developed over time. And I've adjusted it to the type of vehicle I have, and I've been mostly successful. I've had very few knocks. None of them were violent. Most of them were simple. Like, I moved on, and I could probably count them on one hand in, like, going on 3 years now? Like, the car, I ended up being forced into the car in 2018. It's 2021 and I'm still doing this, and I still prefer life this way. So when asked, what is my goal? I paid off my debts. And, you know, I have now a house on wheels that's pretty darn comfortable for me in the house sense. That being said, I do recognize, and the funny thing is, before this happening, about 3 weeks ago, I started sending out resumes. I was specifically looking for stuff in my field because, duh, you know, I have the debt of a freaking 4-year degree. That's the only debt that's not paid off, by the way, is my student loan debt. And I don't know that I'll ever pay it off. It'll probably exist until I die. But anyway, you know, I have a 4-year degree in something. Might as well try to get a job in that first. You know, make that the priority first. Since the repair, I've started thinking differently about it. Like, what else can I do where, you know, I can bank some more money than I've been able to bank in the past couple of months. Like a lot of people, COVID threw a big wrench. I had just gotten, at the beginning of COVID, I had just gotten a really awesome job with Oregon Shakespeare Festival. They do have my resume as well, but at this time they have not opted to rehire me, and I don't know what's going on with that process. I think a lot of people actually ended up transitioning out of OSF during the COVID situation because they had to cut hours and cut employees as well, and I think some people might have just moved on to different jobs. So there's no guarantee I'll ever get that call, so I definitely cannot hold space waiting for that. So I do have some ideas that I'm working toward, because I think just for my own financial security, I need to be, you know, thinking about that. And I want to make sure also now, because I have little Mickey, that Mickey is safe. And where is Mickey right now? You guys always ask, where's Mickey? He is sleeping. Sleeping in my bed, which is apparently his bed, because he just takes it over when he feels like it. But yeah, he's sleeping. He's a cat. You know, they sleep most of the day anyway. But so, like, my biggest priority is, honestly, if it has a parking lot and there's a situation where when I go on breaks, I can go check on him, I'm totally fine. So yeah, that's sort of my priorities and thinking right now about maybe getting a part-time job, a seasonal job, a Christmas job, just something that will allow me to sort of restack my little bit of a nest egg I had a little bit more efficiently. So thinking about that, I will say this is the first time since 2018 that I did not have my car by end of day after taking it to a shop. It's literally the first time. And I know it's one of the biggest fears out there as far as like living out of a vehicle. It's losing, you know, your home, because if you lose your car, you haven't just lost your car, you've lost your home. And one of the most anxious things about it was everything I owned was on a lot at Ford. Like literally everything I own in the universe was in the truck in a lot at Ford. And so like I didn't even get a chance to grab my laptop. Which, you know, a lot of people talk about, oh, you have this room and you can use, like, one of the biggest things people mentioned was the Wi-Fi. I didn't even have my laptop because I didn't have time to grab it. I couldn't remember where it was. I had to be, my truck after it got towed in was in the back lot at Ford where only service agents are supposed to be, so I didn't have this leisure time to pack a detailed bag. Once I realized I was there all day, and once I realized, like, you know, the truck was going to have to be left and I was going to have to find some sort of sleeping arrangements, I went online, I found a cheap motel. You know, I checked my bank account. I wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting too much into money that I could actually use for the repair in order to support having a roof over my head for the night. Luckily, a lot of you guys came through, which eased the burden of that a lot. I'm not even gonna lie. But either way, I started to mentally prepare myself for being very, very careful with every cent that I spent until I had a idea of what the repair actually was and how much it was going to cost. And even now, I don't feel comfortable. And I won't, like I said, until I've had some time where the problem hasn't repeated itself, because in the past couple of weeks, we've thought it's resolved, and then it was not resolved, or at least resolved enough for me to continue on. And it was not resolved. And it's like, this isn't just an adventure vehicle. It wasn't built for that. It was built to be my house wherever I go, whatever my needs are. If I want to travel for fun and vacation, if I want to flit around town, if I have a job in the area and I just park it nearby and like live in it while I have a job in the area, all of those scenarios require this. If I need to go to the supermarket, if I need to buy food, like, it's my A to B as well. This is my daily driver as well as my home. So all of that stuff disappeared when I no longer had access to it. And then I had to make this quick decision about what I was going to grab to get through the night. It was just a situation I'd never been presented with, because usually if I need to get something done on one of my vehicles, I either get there overnight or I get there first thing in the morning before they open. I sit in the lobby all day if that's required, and always by end of day, in the worst case scenario, I always have my keys in my home back in my hand. So I never had a situation where I had to like pack a bag to not be home. When I travel, my home is with me. When I don't travel, my home is with me. So I don't think about these things. But luckily I did buy, because I used to pet sit, and I used to also be in situations where I had to make a quick decision about what I was going to take into the house with me for my pet sitting for an overnight day or two. And so I bought this duffel bag right here. And basically, yeah, it folds up into this little bag, opens up like this, and then you can pull a whole big duffel bag out of here. I just re-zipped this, so I'm not going to pull it all out. And so this is what I grabbed. I grabbed it from my underbody storage, opened it up. I grabbed clothes for me. I grabbed food for Mickey. I grabbed the brand new container of litter I bought. I didn't have a litter box, so I grabbed a small plastic container that happened to be sitting nearby, and I said, this will have to do, and, you know, it worked well enough. And so I was presented with a lot of things you don't think about when you're panicking about this repair situation. One of which was, you know, what do I need for Mickey? Like, I didn't have a Mickey list, so I was grabbing things very randomly. I was like, let me take some toys for a familiar smell, let me grab some food, let me grab some litter, and I was really trying to think about, okay, what is stuff I need for Mickey? And it was like, what do I need for me? Well, let me grab, obviously, clothes. I was hoping it was only going to be a 1 or 2 nights at the most, you know, and pretty much it was, thank goodness. So, like, I grabbed enough clothes for that. I grabbed some of my toiletries. I didn't have time to clean out the fridge. And that's another thing. When you have a home on wheels, and I never thought about this, you probably have a fridge if you have, you know, anything in the RV class. Now, there are people who have camper vans without fridges, they have coolers, but if you have a cooler, it's even worse because, you know, your ice can melt. And so if you're not in a position to grab absolutely everything out your cooler or grab the cooler itself, which was a position I was in, you know, I had to face the fact that all the groceries I had bought might also go bad because I didn't have time to, like, take everything out the fridge. And also, the place I was going to did not have a refrigerator or a microwave. Now, when I was trying to sell my van and then the person defaulted on the deal, I cleaned out the van and I did end up renting a room where there was a fridge and a microwave, so I took some food with me. But in this situation, I couldn't take any food with me, so anything that required, like, well, I could have, but I just didn't know what to grab. Like, my brain couldn't wrap itself around it fast enough. So it was like, I turned off everything. I made everything that was house powered down, and only put the fridge on the power, and I hoped I would get the vehicle back fast enough that my food wouldn't go bad and it would still be good by the time I got back to it. But also, now because I have no access to the kitchen that I always have with me that I drive around with, I had to think about food costs. I had food for Mickey, luckily, but if I hadn't had food for Mickey, I would have needed to go to a store and buy a litter box. I would have needed to go to a store and buy cat food. And then I also would have needed to go to a store and buy food for me. I also didn't have walking access to a store where I was at the the motel that I was staying at. The only thing near me was a Denny's and 2 gas stations. So without spending money on like an Uber or a rental car, which might be a cost that you have to think about, I would have needed to make everything work between the Denny's and the 2 gas stations. So that was basically sort of this things that I'd never thought about. Like, you think about having money put away for the repair, but there's sort of other expenses that might come with that, like having to buy yourself food. If you have a pet, having to buy stuff for your pet. Also, like, it depends. Luckily, I found a cheap motel that allowed pets, but sometimes that can be tricky. Because I have a cat, and I can put him in a carrier where half the time people don't even notice he's in there, I probably could have snuck him in a non-pet place, but I prefer finding a place that just allows pets, and the Motel 6 I found was like a 2-star motel that allowed pets. So it was cheap, and I could bring Mickey. You know, and we were safe for the night. And I know I was kind of a little bit salty. I will agree, in my video, I hate motels. I never stay in motels and hotels. I don't even care if they're nice ones. I just don't like staying in them. I always prefer being in my own space. You know, I don't seek out friends' houses to stay in. I don't, you know, go to motels and hotels. Like, I don't need those quote-unquote breaks from this. This is how I live. This is my house. I'm used to living this way. I'm used to getting propane every couple of weeks. I'm used to dealing with, you know, watching my power, and it's okay, and I'll deal with those things in order to have my space. You know, I like having my space. And I like living in my space, and the only way I would live in any other space is if there are no options. But I was grateful that I was able to just get us a roof over the head for the night. I was just frustrated, and yeah, I was being a little bit of a salty brat while dealing with the situation. And the most stressful thing was, again, even now, because of what's happened the past couple weeks, I don't actually trust that the problem is resolved, and it's less a money thing than I'm afraid because this is a weird electrical thing where maybe it's been fixed, maybe it hasn't. You know, so many people have had so many different conclusions. They all are about the same thing. It's about the fuel pump functioning. Whether the source is the fuel pump or something that's intermittently not talking to the fuel pump, it could have been both or one. Now, because it's a brand new fuel pump, if the fuel pump itself stops working, the work should be warrantied by Ford. But if there's some other issue that hasn't been caught, or the PCM actually is having issues, that could reoccur. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. I don't know what to believe anymore. Nothing is illogical. It could all be right and it could all be wrong, and all I want to know is that I feel safe turning the key and driving places. You know, rather that's errands or a long drive from point A to point B. Like, I want to know I'm safe doing those things. And so that's where the sort of scary part of this sort of is. So it's like, I'm happy to be home. But I'm also not at the point of saying, all right, it's fixed. Let's have some adventures. You know, neither one of those things are occurring right now. I'm in a cautiously observant place where I am just, you know, hoping every time I turn that key that I actually hear it turn over. So it's like, I know what I need to do. I know what I was already planning to do before these problems started occurring. And I also have a better perspective of how to prepare if I am in a situation where I might have to let go of the vehicle overnight. Because, like, I don't pack to go anywhere. Like, I don't have to pack to go anywhere. I just drive the vehicle there. My house is there. You know, and I have everything I always have everywhere I go. You know, and that's something I enjoy. It's one of the reasons I would never live in the house, because to go places you would have to leave the house behind, and I like that I never have to leave my house behind. My house is always with me all the time. Now, that does come with its own challenges, but the risk to reward, I would say overall since 2018 when this started in a car, the rewards have been more than the risks. There are debts that I don't have anymore because I lived in a minivan for almost 2 years. You know, and I still value the value of the lifestyle. You know, and because I've always struggled, I think I have this perspective that I'll always struggle anyway. So I'm not trying to not struggle, because that's pointless. I've always struggled, so I'm never gonna not struggle. But maybe I've actually, you know, assuming all is good, you know, and I don't know. Like, I'm gonna be very cautious for the next couple of weeks to see how the vehicle behaves. But I have crossed the threshold into, you have that, you know, vehicle home you were seeking. Maybe, if you go down some paths that you went down before, you can get yourself in more of a plus position. But I don't want to start believing that, because I think a good, like, 2 years ago, I gave up on the idea of ever actually having that. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. This is a very rambly video because I knew people were going to want an update, and they want me to say, I know it was this and it's fixed. Instead, all I can say is they think it was this, and they think they fixed it. They are probably more confident about that than I am at this point, just because of how the last few weeks have gone. So right now I'm just living and watching and being very careful. All I can do is keep going, keep going by keep living, keep existing, keep puttering around town, doing what I need to do to survive, going to stores, finding places to sleep at night, all of that, and stay where if something did go wrong, it wouldn't be, 1,000-mile drive out to the middle of nowhere. So yeah, I don't even know what else to say. This has been a week of very weird videos. It's not the kind of content I enjoy creating. And I'd love to get back on the build series and back to the content that I like to create, which is not this stuff. This has been a bunch of disasters. And for everybody who says, you need to show us the real stuff, Dawn. We want to hear about the real stuff. For everybody who says that, there's somebody who's like, oh, I see you out here e-begging again. And that's why I don't like doing these videos. I'd rather not hear it. It's a mixed life deciding to share information on YouTube. And there's a million different sort of things you have to learn to mentally block yourself from and learn to deal with in order to exist in such public space. And I never imagined the space would get as big as it was. Like, if you go back in my videos, you can find my 100 subscriber video, and I was like, why is 100 people subscribed to this channel? That's weird. Why? Oh man. Alright. I need to finish cleaning up things around here between being towed by a tow truck and me kind of pulling things open real quick to kind of pack a bag. I'm still in the process of reorganizing this space in my brain, and I'm still too afraid to settle back in. I'm too afraid not to have this duffel bag available just in case. And I feel like I'm just in an observatory period, and we'll see what happens.